A Place Called Perfect, Chapter 25. Time for Tactics. Violet and Boy told their tale with enthusiasm, starting from the very beginning when Violet arrived in Perfect with her family and had her first cup of tea, to her mam's changes, her dad's disappearance, Boy, the wooden glasses, No Man's Land, the Watchers, the Hollower, the Tunnel, the Ghost Estate, Macula, the Eyes, finding her dad, and right up to the meeting William and spotting the Reimaginator. William interrupted with questions. He pushed them to remember every detail, and when they'd finished, they were both exhausted. "I've never had to think this hard about anything," Boy yawned, rubbing his forehead. "We have to get everything down on paper, Boy. My brothers are formidable opponents, and we can't go into battle ill-prepared." "We're going into battle?" Violet gasped, her eyes huge. "Yes," William smiled. "We're going to cause mayhem and madness. My brothers won't know what's hit them. I've been feeling sorry for myself for a very long time, and you two have made me see sense. I can't sit around and wait for somebody else to stand up to those two. I have to make it happen. Waiting is a coward's game. I have to fight for what I want." "Well, I want my family back," Violet said, sitting upright. "As do I, Violet," William replied. Boy sat silently fidgeting, and Violet blushed. "Boy, imagine," she joked. "Once I get Mum and Dad back, you'll be free of me." Her friend smiled, but it didn't feel real. "My brothers must be using the Ghost Estate as their headquarters," William said, pushing from the table. "Right. From the beginning, I could never find where they based themselves. Perhaps all the stories of hauntings made me overlook the estate. I've only been there once, and that was before Macula's father died. Do you two think you could draw an accurate map marking exactly where things are? The eye plants, Macula, the Watchers, everything?" "And where my dad is," Violet added. "Of course, Violet," William said, mumbling to himself as he walked back into the shadows of the room. Violet and Boy were arguing over the number of houses in the estate when William rejoined them at the table. He was laden with bits and bobs of equipment, reams of paper, and a jar of gooey water in which the dead eye plant was suspended. "Ew!" Violet said as the jar was placed in front of her. "That thing is disgusting. At least the smaller ones didn't look so bad." "Smaller ones?" William asked. "Yes, they're growing in some of the houses under a red light. The larger ones are outside on the green." "Oh, I suspect the small ones are seedlings. I imagine they're put out on the green to flourish. Then once they get to a certain size, I'm sure they're harvested." "That's a lot of eyes," Boy said. "Well, there's a lot of people in Perfect, and they each have 2 eyes. William smiled grimly. "My brothers have a big plan up their sleeves. I confess I did a little investigation after you left last night. It reminded me of the old days." William smiled as he picked up the limp eyeball. "I think I may have discovered what my brothers are up to with these little beauties." He handed the plant to Violet and then to Boy, pointing out an incision he'd made in the centre of the eye. "See this?" he said, gently lifting a thin layer of rose-coloured film from the pupil. "It's made from the same material as the lenses Ed and George put in their glasses. It's the advanced technology I told you about, VR, or bended reality. I remember Edward's main frustration with Perfect was that it wasn't perfect, not when everyone in town wore glasses. With these new eyes, that problem is solved. Genius, in a twisted kind of way." "You mean they're going to take out people's eyes and give them new ones?" Boy said, going pale. "Exactly, Boy," William smiled. I don't expect my brothers will explain it that way, though. No doubt they'll make a big announcement and tell the town that your father has solved the problem, and they can now pinpoint why people have gone blind. They'll probably give some explanation, which of course nobody will question, and then a solution, such as laser surgery to fix the problem. I've heard it's all the rage in the world of optometry these days. I can see their tagline now. Imagine a life without glasses. The funny thing is, no one would be able to imagine, as they have no imaginations left. William laughed. Then how will they steal people's imaginations without the glasses? Violet asked. Oh, Violet, William smiled. No matter what I say about my brothers, I have to give them one thing. They are extremely clever. I expect people will need a number of checkups after laser surgery, don't you think? 3 or 4 sessions should be sufficient to steal a whole imagination these days, and then a checkup, or should I say a top-up, once a year would work nicely for any residue. Oh, Violet gasped. We have to stop them. If they swap people's actual eyes, there'll be no hope of them seeing reality again. Exactly, William agreed, and we have to act quickly. What are you planning? Boy asked. I propose a full-on assault. Storm the estate, rescue Macula and Violet's dad, of course, and destroy the eyes. Violet watched William frantically scribble notes when she noticed Boy signalling from the other side of the table. I'm not sure that's the best idea, Boy said quietly. William looked up from his papers. And why not? He asked. Well, firstly, how do we get across the river? A minor detail, William interrupted. The Watchers aren't stupid, Boy continued. I've spent 12 years finding that out. They know we know where Violet's dad is. They also know we know about the eye plants. They won't feel too threatened, as we're only kids, but they'll still be on high alert for anyone going in or out of the estate. And how do we get in there? The footbridge won't hold enough people for us to be able to attack, and sneaking through the Archer's tunnel again is too dangerous. I really don't think it's a good idea to go there first. He looked at William, then at Violet. I know you want Macula and Violet wants her dad, but the Watchers will be expecting us to go back there. We'll walk straight into their trap. Silence filled the room as all three sat thinking. I kind of agree with Boy, Violet said, eventually shifting in her seat. I mean, I really want to save Dad, but Boy's usually right about these things, and if we mess up, Dad will be in more trouble than ever. William Archer stood up and began pacing the room. Boy, I'm impressed, he said. I was going to run into this like a headless chicken. All thoughts of Macula have clearly clouded my vision and put my own needs ahead of the town. I've been selfish, and that could have been a fatal mistake. This can't be about what I want. It has to be about perfect. Perhaps we need some lateral thinking. Maybe if we list the problems first, Boy said, it will help us to come up with a plan to solve them. Careful, you're sounding kind of intelligent, Violet joked. I like your approach. Very mathematical, William smiled, ruffling Boy's hair. There may be a scientist in you yet. Well, the most obvious problem, Violet said, is everyone imperfect is blind. And controlled because they've no imagination, Boy added, as William wrote vigorously in his notepad. So, if we get them to see again, then get the Reimaginator to give them back their imaginations, everything would be fixed. Violet jumped up excitedly. That's great, Violet, but can we rewind a little? William said, looking up from the page. Why is everyone blind? Because of the tea, she smiled. If we can stop people drinking it for a while, then they'll be able to see reality again like I did. They'll never stop drinking it, Boy sighed, shaking his head. They're addicted to the stuff. It's delivered to people's homes, given out in school at break, and the most popular place in town is the tea shop. They may not have to stop, William said, chewing on his pencil. What do you mean? Violet asked. I invented a reversing agent for the eye drops years ago. Maybe it'll work on the tea. I'll see if I can find my notes. That's brilliant, Violet said eagerly. So if we can get everyone to see again, then your machine can give them back their imaginations. Does the Reimaginator actually work? Boy asked. I'll get it working, William assured. But how can we change people? The watchers are everywhere. We'll never get past them into perfect, Violet said, her excitement waning a little. Exactly how many watchers do we think there are? William asked. Can we overpower them if we get other people to join us? The three spent a few minutes piecing together the number of watchers they thought existed, but they couldn't get a figure they all agreed on. Let's just say there's lots, Boy said, trying to put a stop to the argument. But who's going to take on the watchers? Violet asked. There's only 3 of us. The no man's landers might come out to help us, William half whispered, but we'd need to win them over, tell them our plan and show them the Reimaginator. I think we could convince them. They're already defeated, though, Boy said, looking straight at William. I don't think the No Man's Landers have the spirit to fight anymore. They'll get it back, Boy, William smiled warmly. They just need to be reminded it's still there. Do you really think we can do this? Violet asked. William stopped writing. I've been locked up too long now, Violet. It's that or die trying. They set to work formulating a rough plan for Project Perfect. Then William beckoned the pair into his office to begin Phase 1. Give the perfectionists back their eyesight. Boy and Violet sat down on the ground and watched as he rifled through the reams of paper spread across his desk and floor. I had it somewhere. He frowned, throwing a pile of notes over his shoulder. I'd been working on reversing the effects of their drops, but abandoned the plan, figuring myself mad for even trying. However, I'm not altogether sure this mixture will work on the tea. They didn't have that in my day. Maybe they used the same stuff in the tea as they did in the drops. They probably just used more of it, Violet smiled. Good point, Violet. Aha, here it is, William exclaimed, zoning in on a particular page. William Archer, the scientist, sprung to life. Keeping his notes aside, he shifted the rest of his papers from the desk onto the floor in front of the door, blocking the entrance. Once the desk was clear, he folded down the front panel, revealing a hidden workspace behind. Glass flasks and thermometers were piled high, and he muttered to himself while he reached for them. It was a long night, and the children were exhausted. Boy fell asleep beside Violet, and as she watched William at work, her eyes gradually drooped to a close. The sun was just rising when William gently shook them both from their dreams and handed over a flask of greenish-pink liquid. He was beaming from ear to ear. This should reverse the effects of the tea if I've done it right, he smiled, wiping the sweat from his brow. Now do you remember the plan? Yes, Boy said, sleepily taking the flask. We'll go to the tea factory. Out on George's Road, William interrupted, his eyes red with tiredness. I know, I've been there before, Boy sighed. We break in. Sneak in, Boy, William corrected, his face now a little anxious. "Find the tank with my brother's blinding concoction. It'll probably be suspended above the factory floor and sprayed down onto the chameleon plant. I can't imagine any other way to do it on such a large scale. Then pour this in. I know, we've gone through the plan 1,000,000 times. Don't worry," Boy replied, taking the flask from William. "Brilliant," the older man said, his face still a little stressed. "I'll expect you back this evening then. Hopefully at that stage I'll have rounded up some others to join our ranks." "Great," Violet said, her heart hammering in her chest. "Now all we have to do is sneak out of no man's land without the Watchers finding us, through Perfect, and sneak into the tea factory. Sounds easy." "Easy when you've grown up in no man's land," Boy smiled reassuringly. His confidence was infectious, and Violet didn't feel as worried as she gave William a hug and snuck out from the house into the early morning light. Armed with the flask, she clung desperately to the hope that they really could save Perfect and her family. And that's the end of chapter 25.